Zarg had never really understood why he took the student exchange program. Maybe it had been stupidity, maybe boredom. Maybe it was just his subconscious playing some sick joke. It didn't really matter why, because when he arrived in the Sol System terminal, he was simply not prepared, and that was that. His host family was a small one, only 3 individuals, paired with him based on his questionnaire and interests, which he had listed on his education forms. The youngest of them was a student, and the older pair were the elder mates that brought forth such a spawn. His hive brood would have been proud of him. He didn't scream with bloated vocal sacs upon arrival. They were so ugly. Zarg had grown up hearing from his brood fathers of the bravery and courage the humans had shown during the Great War. How they had pulled the front lines forward by grit and determination alone and helped form the boundaries all species respected today. Zarg had grown listening to tales of their dexterity, their strength and their skills in the field. He had not been prepared for how fleshy and squishy they looked, however. See, Zarg was a shelled species. The only surviving such species on his planet. He knew squish when he saw it, and it disgusted him. Squish meant revealed flesh, from beneath the safety of a chitinous plate, grave, and open wounds. It took every fiber of his being, not to throw up in disgust, right there on the landing platform. And he was eternally grateful that their translators did not indicate physical expressions and body language, as well as they did words. "Hello, Zarg." The youngest of the 3 within his new host family greeted him warmly, offering a meaty appendage to shake claws, as was the commonly taught greetings of the Sol System. "Welcome. We're glad you've made it in time for Christmas. We were worried that the solar winds of this cycle would disrupt and delay your travels. I thank you for your hospitality." Zarg continued to feel squeamish, even as the strange wheeled vehicle took them away from the landing bay. It was difficult to feel such a profound sense of disconnection. Not a single member of his species was in range, for he felt not telepathic connection to the hive mind, nor did he feel the weightlessness that normally accompanies planet-side travel. Normally such gravity would be weaker than the galactic standard, but in this case he was certain that it was at least 20 to 30% heavier. "Zarg, I hope you are prepared. My parents are going to take us through them all, that way we can have you help us pick out your gifts." The smaller human pulled its lips back in a feral grin that sickened Zarg even more than he could bear, almost causing him to cycle a gas sack before pulling it back into place by sheer force of will. You're too kind." He gasped, as internally, Zarg prayed that the exchange trip's rotation period would be a short one. The mall was something of nightmares, dreams, aspirations, and propaganda all rolled into one giant sprawling mess. There were humans everywhere, absolutely everywhere. No matter what direction Zarg's multiple eyes shifted to search, he found another. Blaring music, sounds, tastes, smells, and pictures threatened them at every winding turn throughout the gargantuan facility. Some of the pictures moved, with cartoonish variations of the disgustingly open flesh that represented human beauty and idealism on open display, utilizing hologram technology. Every time Zarg attempted to stabilize himself against the relentless tide of overwhelming information, something else would take him off guard. As they entered a side room in the facility, likely for the specific purpose of providing clothing to the masses, Zarg let out a tiny scream in terror. There were corpses on display. His hosting parental figures were quick to try and calm him, reassuring him that these were simply mannequins. Though Zarg truly didn't know the meaning of the term, nor the purpose. They were decorated in a morbid fashion, covering the synthetic and apparently deceased being with their synthetic and artificial coverings. In a way he was thankful for them, as there was less visible. Still, as his trip through the mall continued, Zarg began to have second, third, even fourth thoughts about the whole ordeal. Perhaps he had bitten off more than he could digest in one sitting. The humans were simply too strange, too foreign. His vision began to crest green and orange with disgust and stress. It was only when they reached the food court that Zarg finally felt a sense of peace. No matter what could be said about their appearances or their culture, human cooking was renowned as some of the greatest in the Milky Way galaxy. Zarg relaxed in the many smells and odors that wafted from around him, feeling them with his sensory whisker scales. On your questionnaire, you said you enjoy seafood, isn't that right, Zarg? His student companion asked with another strange revealing of teeth. Forcing politeness, Zarg attempted to reply in kind, raising his scaled whiskers to show his mandibles. Yes, the seafood of my world has always been a favorite of mine. Great. With that he was led into a strange store, with tables and booths set with the festive color gradients he was growing accustomed to, of green and red spectrum. The smells that wafted were alluring, strange, appetizing. Zarg had never had human cuisine before, but he had heard many things from his brood fathers and his brethren that had traveled. He had never heard anything of their seafood though. Food that came from the seas were plentiful on his homeworld as well, and it was common for gifts of mushrooms and sponge or coral to be given out for festive holidays. Perhaps the humans were not so different after all, sharing in this common culture. He ordered what was described as the special for the evening, earning respect from his host father, who commented on his appetite, commending him. After they had bought so many things and traveled such great distances by foot, perhaps they reflected as his kind did, sharing stories and tales over a shared meal. They had purchased him many things, some of which were electronic, some were loose clothing which he could wear, even with his many limbs. It was to keep him warm, they said, as it was common knowledge that the temperature fluctuations of their planet were far outside that of the average visitors. Zarg had finally felt a calm float over him by the time he heard the motion of food arriving. Everything was going to be alright, he was just nervous and offset by their differences, so much that he had overlooked their similarities. That was until he saw what arrived on his plate before him, and his mandibles quivered uncontrollably with terror. His gargling scream could be heard down the halls of the mall for a quarter mile, over the din of foot traffic and conversation. Zarg, are you alright? Katie asked, gently reaching out to touch her exchange partner. Is this part of your customs? Katie, relax. I'm certain he has just had too much excitement for the day. Her mother laughed as she reached for her glass of water in the center of the booth. It is perfectly fine, we did push him through quite a bit on his first day. That's right, her father said with a grin. We'll just pack up his lobster to go, so he can enjoy it later. Author's account and link to original text is in the description.